Leadership or leadership style is a very complicated definition and one that many people have tried to define over the years. There's no doubt that the ability to lead is a favorable trait, but what is leadership? Well, leadership essentially, if I had to boil it down, is the ability to influence others for change, influence others towards a common goal. I think if we're talking about the work that I do, and maybe perhaps the type of leader that I am, I would say it's a blend between adaptive and servant leadership. Adaptive leadership, as Linksey in a 2011 TED Talk, addresses change, and it addresses change as related to what we call wicked problems. Now, change is difficult. It is often unfavorable, so to influence others for change is a struggle. Northouse actually defines in his book Leadership Theory and Practice that people that want to elicit change have to challenge other people's assumptions, attitudes, preconceptions, and beliefs, as well as behaviors. This is something that we struggle with, and this is something that it takes a certain trait or skill set to address. Now, adaptive leadership is follower-centered, which means that it really wants to empower the follower for change. That's not the leader who enforces and enacts the change, but influences the followers for that change. Now, there are three situational sort of challenges that an adaptive leader faces. One is technical, the other is adaptive, and then the third is a combination between technical and adaptive. So technical involves eliciting some sort of expert. There is a problem that is relatively easy to solve in which an expert can help do that. And adaptive is not an easy problem to solve and requires the use of motivation to help followers change their beliefs and practices. And then, of course, the third one is a combination between the two. When we look at the work that we do as educators, quite often our job is to influence students to do the work. Quite often it is to change the way they thought about things before, especially when looking at complex issues. And in this case, looking at the preconceived notions of Indigenous culture and stereotypes and the ideas of what needs to change. So clearly, as an educator, we are dealing with wicked problems as well. If it was so easy to solve our education system, we wouldn't have the outdated model that we still have. It's a complex problem. Well, when we're taking a look at the other style of leadership, I think about servant leadership. I mean, the most obvious example of servant leadership is Mother Teresa. In servant leadership, like adaptive leadership, it is follower-centered, but it involves some amount of altruism. And I think a lot of teachers fit in this category too. There's quite often long hours, quite a lot of emotional fatigue that goes into helping these students. And you don't always feel the reward of your efforts or work. I think that the most important thing that we do is we help students learn, grow, and often develop a moral compass. We want them to be responsible. We want them to take stewardship over our land. And as the world becomes more global, we have to think about our transforming influence and the way that we value people, all peoples, all cultures. I think that everybody wants to use their gifts for something, but the servant leader really finds purpose in their gifts. So essentially, that's what I believe that my learning style is, and perhaps the learning style that we look at in education. And I think it is a learning style that will serve well to address the Indigenous issues and hopefully move forward, developing a clearer moral conscience, taking ownership, serving others, putting our own sense of white privilege aside, and truly stepping up to help out.